Imagine a world where truly valuable work, the kind that creates lasting impact and pushes boundaries, is not just rare but increasingly seen as an anomaly. We're living in it, and the constant hum of distraction is silently eroding our capacity to do it. Welcome to Book Talk Podcast. I'm Jack.
And I'm Maya.
Today we are dissecting Deep Work by Cal Newport. The central argument here is fascinating. The ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task is a skill that's becoming both rarer and more valuable in our modern economy.
It really challenges the usual advice, doesn't it? Instead of just doing more, this book argues that doing deeper work, the kind that truly matters, is the key to both productivity and fulfillment.
Newport presents deep work as the superpower of the 21st century, but it's not just about getting more done. It's about creating meaningful output in a world saturated with what he calls shallow work, those easily replicated, non-cognitive tasks that often just fill our day without truly advancing us.
And that distinction between deep and shallow work is such an eye-opener. So many of us spend our days in a reactive mode, responding to emails, checking social media, jumping between tasks, feeling busy but not truly productive. This book really taps into that frustration and offers a clear path out.
It certainly does, and it's not just a critique, it's a practical guide. He argues that this ability to focus deeply is a skill that can be cultivated through specific practices, offering actionable strategies to transform your work habits and create lasting value.
Absolutely. If you've ever felt like your attention span is shrinking, or you're constantly fighting distractions just to get one important thing done, this episode is for you. We're going to explore how to build these deep work habits, protect your focus, and ultimately produce better, more meaningful results.
We'll delve into his 4 rules for deep work, discuss how to identify and eliminate shallow tasks, and even touch on the surprising benefits beyond just productivity, like finding more meaning and a greater sense of craft in your professional life.
Even if you haven't read Deep Work, by the end of this conversation, you'll have a complete grasp of its core principles and tangible ways to start applying them immediately. It's truly about taking back control of your attention and your professional life.
And that's just the beginning. This book is packed with insights that challenge how we think, act, and grow.
So if you've been meaning to read it, or you already have and want to really understand it, you're in the right place. We're covering the entire book today, start to end.
All right, let's dive into the core ideas. Okay, moving into Chapter 1, titled Deep Work is Valuable. This is where Cal Newport really sets the stage, defining why this concept isn't just a nice-to-have, but an absolute necessity in our modern economy. He kicks it off with these 3 fascinating examples of people who are absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, like Nate Silver, the data guy who predicted the 2012 election with uncanny accuracy. Or David Heinemeier Hansson, the creator of Ruby on Rails, living this globe-trotting lifestyle, racing cars. And then John Doerr, the venture capitalist behind so many tech giants. They seem like a random collection of incredibly successful people, right? So, what's the thread? Is it just that they are all super smart or got lucky?
That's a great question, and it's precisely what Newport explores. He says we could look at their individual traits, their grit, their intelligence, but that's the micro view. What he wants us to focus on is the macro view, the type of work these individuals represent, because our economy is fundamentally shifting to reward that type of work disproportionately. He brings in Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee from MIT, who coined the term the Great Restructuring.
The Great Restructuring. Sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? Like something out of a sci-fi movie where robots take over. Is it just another way of saying AI is coming for our jobs?
In a way, yes, but more nuanced. Brynjolfsson and McAfee argue that technology is advancing so rapidly that many of our human skills and organizational structures are lagging behind. For a lot of people, this means bad news. As machines get smarter, faster, and more capable, employers increasingly choose new machines over new people. And even when you need a human, improved communication means companies can outsource to the best talent anywhere, leaving local talent in the dust.
So it's not universally grim, but it's not exactly a picnic either. It sounds like a division, almost like a fork in the road, where some jobs are automated or outsourced and others become super valuable. That's a pretty stark picture. Who ends up on the thriving side of that divide? Because I'm guessing average isn't going to cut it anymore.
Hit on it exactly. Tyler Cohen, another economist, sums it up with average is over. Brynjolfsson and McAfee identify three specific groups that will thrive, and our initial examples, Silver, Hansen, and Doerr, fit perfectly into them. The first group is what they call the high-skilled workers. These are people who can work with and tease valuable results out of increasingly complex intelligent machines. Think Nate Silver and his Monte Carlo simulations. The question here for you, for anyone, is, are you good at working with intelligent machines, or are you hoping to just compete against them?
That's a tough question, because a lot of us aren't coding or building AI models. My job doesn't involve feeding data into giant databases like Nate Silver. So, if I'm not a high-skilled worker in that very technical sense, am I already out? It feels like the bar for skill just got set incredibly high.
Not necessarily purely technical, though those skills are certainly rewarded. It's more about the capacity for abstract and data-driven reasoning augmented by technology. It's about leveraging these tools, not just operating them. But that's just the first group. The second group is what they call superstars. This is where David Heinemeier Hansson, the Ruby on Rails guy, fits in.
Superstars? So, the best of the best. This sounds even more exclusive. Is it like a winner-take-all situation? Because if everyone's competing globally, only a tiny fraction can truly be the best. It feels a bit brutal, like hearing a succession of mediocre singers doesn't add up to one outstanding performance.
Precisely that analogy. Newport actually uses that exact phrase from economist Sherwin Rosen. Technology, with its high-speed networks and collaboration tools, has destroyed regionalism in many knowledge sectors. Now, a company in Des Moines can hire Hansson, the world's best programmer, remotely from Marbella, Spain, for a project rather than a full-time local programmer. The best get chosen by everyone. Meaning, even a small talent advantage leads to a disproportionate share of the market. You're no longer competing with just your city, you're competing with the world.
That makes sense, but it's also terrifying. If only the very best are going to thrive in these superstar roles, what about everyone else? It feels like the middle class of knowledge work is just getting squeezed out.
It's a valid concern, and it's a key part of the bimodal trajectory Newport discusses. But there's a third group that thrives, epitomized by John Doerr, the owners. These are the individuals with capital to invest in the new technologies driving this great restructuring.
Okay, so venture capitalists and investors. That makes perfect sense for John Doerr, with his billions. But for the average person listening, that's not exactly a practical path to thriving. Most of us aren't sitting on piles of cash ready to fund the next Google.
No, not most of us. And Newport acknowledges that access to capital has always provided advantages. But he points out that this specific period of great restructuring is a particularly good time to have capital, because the returns on investing in these new, rapidly advancing technologies are astronomical. So if you sum it up, the economy is massively rewarding those who can skillfully work with intelligent machines. Those who are among the absolute best at their craft on a global scale, and those who own the capital funding all of it.
So, it's not just about working hard anymore. It's about working smart in these very specific, high-leverage ways. It's about being incredibly valuable in one of these three categories. This chapter really lays out the why behind deep work. It's the pathway to becoming one of these valuable individuals, to thrive in an economy that's otherwise pretty ruthless for the average.
Exactly. The modern economy demands two core abilities if you want to be a winner. The ability to quickly master hard things and the ability to produce at an elite level, both in terms of quality and speed. These aren't optional traits, they're becoming essential. This creates a real paradox, though, because while this type of work is clearly valuable, how common do you think it is to find people actually engaging in it? So we just laid out what deep work actually is, right? This idea of focused, uninterrupted concentration. But then we hit chapter 2 and Cal Newport throws a curveball with its title, Deep Work is Rare. And you're immediately left wondering if it's so valuable, so crucial for producing at an elite level, why isn't everyone doing it? Why isn't every company demanding it?
Exactly. My first thought was, well, yeah, because it's hard. It's hard to sit down and focus for hours without checking your phone or jumping to another tab. That felt like the natural reason for its rarity. But then he starts talking about these massive business trends, and suddenly it's not just about my personal discipline, it's about the entire modern workplace working against me.
That's the core paradox he introduces. He says, look, on one hand, deep work is more valuable than ever. On the other hand, the business world is actively prioritizing things that make deep work nearly impossible. He points to three big trends. First, the ubiquitous open plan office. He talks about Facebook building this gargantuan open floor plan, thousands of employees, movable furniture, all to encourage serendipitous collaboration. Jack Dorsey doing the same at Square.
I've worked in an open office, and serendipitous collaboration sounds great on paper, like you'll overhear something and spark a brilliant idea. But what it really means, for me anyway, is constantly hearing someone else's phone call, someone else's keyboard clacking, someone else's conversation. It's like trying to think clearly in a crowded coffee shop during rush hour. You might catch a great idea, but mostly you're just trying to block out the noise.
And Cal Newport backs you up, Maya. He references studies from a British TV special that found open offices, while they might boost collaboration, do so at the cost of massive distraction. Neuroscientists in those experiments showed that even if you're not consciously aware, your brain responds to those background noises, ruining concentration. It's not just annoying, it's literally breaking your focus.
Okay, so that's one. What's the second trend making deep work rare?
The rise of instant messaging and real-time communication. He mentions IBM sending 5 million IMs a day, or startups like Hall, where employees are praised for setting up their text editors to flash alerts and instantly jump to respond. The idea here is rapid communication and real-time collaboration.
Oh, I live this one. It's that constant ping, that expectation that you're available right now. Email at least gives you a buffer, you choose when to open it. But Slack, Teams, whatever it is, it's designed to be always on, always interrupting. You feel like you're being a bad team player if you don't respond immediately.
And he cites Gloria Mark, an expert on attention fragmentation. Her studies showed that even short interruptions significantly delay the total time needed to complete a task. It's not just the 2 seconds you spend reading the IM, it's the 10 or 15 minutes it takes to fully re-engage with your original deep task. It's a huge cognitive cost.
So open offices, instant messaging, what's the third one? Let me guess, social media.
You got it, the pressure for everyone from journalists at the New York Times to authors to maintain a constant social media presence. The drive for exposure and engagement. He tells this great story about novelist Jonathan Franzen, who called Twitter a coercive development and was widely ridiculed for it, branded as out of touch.
Oh, I remember that. It's like if you're not tweeting about your work or sharing your thoughts, you're not relevant. But for a writer, someone who needs to dive deep into complex ideas and craft sentences, how does constantly being on Twitter help that? It feels like it pulls you in the exact opposite direction.
It does. Newport highlights George Packer, a New Yorker staff writer who said, "Twitter is crack for media addicts. It scares me not because I'm morally superior to it, but because I don't think I could handle it. I'm afraid I'd end up letting my son go hungry." And Packer went on to win a National Book Award for The Unwinding right after writing that essay without a Twitter presence. It really highlights how these trends are not just irrelevant, but actively detrimental to deep creative work.
So here's the paradox. If deep work is so essential for high-value output, why are organizations embracing and even promoting these practices that actively destroy it? It just doesn't make sense from a business perspective. Are they just dumb?
That's where he introduces the metric black hole. It's not that companies are dumb, it's that the impact of deep work and the cost of distraction are incredibly difficult to measure. He gives the example of Tom Cochran, the CTO of Atlantic Media. Cochran realized he was spending too much time on email, so he decided to quantify it.
How do you even quantify email? That sounds like a rabbit hole.
He went all in. He tracked how many emails he received and sent, estimated time per email. Then he scaled it up to the whole company, emails sent per day, average words per email, typing speed, reading speed, salaries. And he found that Atlantic Media was spending over $1 million a year just on paying people to process emails. He called it soft costs equivalent to procuring a small company Learjet.
$1 million a year just on email? That's insane. It sounds like that's a perfect metric to show the cost of distraction.
And it's illuminating. But Newport's real point isn't just the dollar figure, it's the complexity of getting that figure. Cochran had to conduct surveys, pull IT stats, gather salary data, run a statistical model. Even then, it's hard to separate the value created by some emails from the cost. It's a metric black hole because the value of deep work and the true cost of constant shallow work are incredibly hard to quantify directly and consistently.
So, because it's hard to measure, it gets ignored. Like, if you can't put a nice, clean number on it for the quarterly report, it just doesn't exist to the people making decisions. My boss can see if I responded to a Slack message in 2 minutes, but they can't easily measure the profound impact of me spending 2 hours uninterrupted on a complex project.
Precisely. In the absence of clear metrics for individual contributions in complex knowledge work, people default to what can be seen and measured, visible activity, rapid responses, being on all the time. This leads to what he calls arbitrary reasons for embracing distraction. It's not that deep work isn't valuable, but our current systems just aren't set up to value it or even understand it.
It's not a weakness of deep work itself, then, but a weakness in how we define and measure productivity in many modern workplaces. No wonder it feels like an uphill battle, sometimes just to get a few hours of quiet focus. So, the takeaway from this chapter is that deep work is rare not because it's impossible for us, but because the very structures and expectations of our professional lives often inadvertently work against it. It's built on this unstable foundation of poorly measured value.
Exactly, it's a systemic problem, not just an individual failing. But if the environment isn't going to change for us, then the question becomes, how do we as individuals navigate this reality? How do we carve out space for deep work when everything around us is pushing for the opposite? That's the real challenge. So we've talked about what deep work is and why it's becoming so rare. Now, Cal Newport takes us into Chapter 3, titled Deep Work is Meaningful. And this is where he really starts to build the case for why this isn't just about productivity, but about a richer, more fulfilling life.
Okay, meaningful. I'm listening. Because honestly, sometimes my work just feels like, well, work. And if it's not meaningful, am I doing it wrong?
He starts with this incredible story of Rick Furrer, a blacksmith. Not just any blacksmith, but a master craftsman who specializes in ancient metalworking. Imagine him in his barn in rural Wisconsin with the forge roaring, painstakingly recreating a Viking-era sword. He starts with this tiny ingot, smelting it using a 1,500-year-old technique.
A Viking sword? That sounds intense and heavy.
Extremely. The initial shaping alone takes 8 hours of continuous hammering. He describes it as terrible at first, but then something shifts. He's not just mindlessly whacking metal. Every single blow is controlled, gentle even, because if he slips, if his focus wavers, that whole day's work, dozens of hours of effort can be ruined. He says you have to nudge it, slowly it breaks down, then you start to enjoy it. And by the end, when he pulls the burning sword from the oil, engulfed in yellow flames, you can feel his admiration, his pride. He says, I don't need a sword, but I have to make them.
Wow, I can totally see the meaning in that. That tangible creation, the skill, the intense focus on one thing until it's perfect. It's almost primal. But that's a blacksmith, right? That's a completely different world from someone sitting at a desk, staring at a screen. That's my struggle. How does that translate to my world of emails and spreadsheets?
Exactly, and Cal Newport acknowledges that directly. He says this connection between deep work and a good life is widely accepted for craftsmen. We get it. But for knowledge work, he says, that connection gets mudded.
Mudded is a nice way to put it. Sometimes it feels completely erased.
There are two main reasons, he argues. First, there's a lack of clarity. Furrer's challenge is simple to define, make a perfect sword, but difficult to execute. For knowledge workers, the challenges are often ambiguous. What exactly is the impact of that spreadsheet? How does this email chain truly move the needle? On our worst days, he says, it just feels like the same exhausting roil of emails and PowerPoint.
That hits home. It's hard to feel like a master craftsman when you're just triaging your inbox.
And the second issue is the constant noise, the cacophony of voices pushing us toward shallow work. Fast email responses, active social media presence, these are lauded as innovation. If Rick Furrer doesn't use Facebook, nobody cares. But if a knowledge worker tries to ditch some of that, they're labeled eccentric. Cal even says he learned this from personal experience.
Oh, absolutely. Try to block out time to actually think or create something substantial, and you're seen as unresponsive. It's like you're actively working against the culture. So, if it's so muddy, how does he bring it back to being meaningful for us?
This is where he introduces three arguments. He starts with a neurological perspective, then moves to psychological and finally philosophical. The neurological one is fascinating. He brings up Winifred Gallagher, a science writer who, after a terrifying cancer diagnosis, made a profound decision. She realized the disease wanted to monopolize her attention, but she decided she would instead focus on the good things in her life.
That's a powerful choice, but it also sounds like, just think positive. Is that really the big insight here?
It's deeper than that. She noticed that despite brutal cancer treatments, her life was surprisingly pleasant because of this deliberate focus. She went on to research the role of attention in defining life quality and concluded that who you are, what you think, feel, and do, what you love, is the sum of what you focus on.
So, it's not just wishing things were better, but actively choosing what to put your mental energy into.
Precisely, we often think our circumstances dictate our happiness. You get the promotion, you're happy. You don't, you're sad. But research, like that from psychologist Barbara Fredrickson, shows that how you focus after an event, good or bad, can significantly leverage your attitude going forward. She calls them reset buttons.
Give me an example of a reset button for when things are actually awful.
She uses the example of a couple fighting over chores. Instead of fixating on your partner's selfishness and sloth, which just spirals you down, you could focus on the fact that the conflict has at least been aired. It's the first step toward a solution, and that shift in focus can genuinely improve your mood and the outcome. It's not ignoring the problem, but reframing how your attention engages with it. Scientists can even see this happening in the brain with fMRI scans. Your brain literally constructs your reality based on where you direct your focus.
So, deep work isn't just about getting important tasks done, it's about actively structuring your attention to build a more meaningful internal experience, regardless of what's happening around you. Like that blacksmith furrer. He chose to focus on the mastery, the creation, despite the physically brutal initial steps.
Exactly. The neurological argument for depth is that by engaging your attention deeply, you're not just being productive. You're actively shaping your subjective experience of life to be more positive, more fulfilling. It's about taking control of your inner world by controlling your focus.
That makes so much sense. It connects the doing to the feeling. So, it's not just about earning more or being more efficient, but about actually feeling better, more satisfied every day.
Absolutely. It's about finding that same rich meaning a craftsman experiences, even in an abstract knowledge economy, simply by managing what you pay attention to. This neurological foundation sets up a powerful case. Now that we understand the deep connection between focused attention and personal meaning, the next step is to figure out how to consistently cultivate that deep focus in a world that constantly pulls us toward the shallow. It's about designing your life, not just wishing for it. Okay, so building on what we talked about before, we're diving into Chapter 4 now, titled Work Deeply. And right away, Cal Newport hits us with this incredible, almost fantastical concept, the eudaimonia machine.
The what machine? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. Is this where he starts talking about building robots to do our deep work for us? Because I'm in.
Not quite robots, but almost as ambitious. He's talking about a building designed by an architecture professor named David Duane. The name eudaimonia comes from an ancient Greek concept, essentially meaning a state of achieving your full human potential. So the machine is a physical space, a building, specifically engineered to put you in that state for deep work.
A building just for deep work. That sounds like the ultimate luxury. Most of us are just trying to find a quiet corner in a noisy office.
Exactly, it's a striking contrast to our reality. Duane sketches it out, and it's this narrow, one-story rectangle with 5 rooms in a line. The crucial part is there's no hallway. You have to pass through each room to get to the next, which is meant to draw you deeper and deeper into focus.
So it's like a psychological tunnel to concentration? Tell me about these rooms. I'm picturing some kind of monastic cell.
Not quite a monastic cell, more like a graded descent into focus. First, you hit the gallery. This room is full of examples of incredible deep work already produced in the building, meant to inspire you, create this healthy stress and peer pressure.
Okay, so you walk in, you see all this brilliant stuff, and you think, right, I better bring my A game. That's smart. A little competitive energy.
Then you move into the salon. This is where you find high-quality coffee, maybe even a bar, couches, Wi-Fi. It's for debating, brooding, working through initial ideas in a more relaxed but still intellectually charged atmosphere. Think of it as the brainstorming hub.
Coffee and a bar? Now we're talking. So you get inspired, then you hash out the initial messy ideas with a good espresso. Or a whiskey, if it's that kind of day.
From the salon, you enter the library. This holds a permanent record of all the work done in the machine, plus all the books and resources used. Duane calls it the hard drive of the machine. It's where you gather and collect your information.
Logical, get inspired, brainstorm, then research. I can see the progression. What's next?
After the library, you hit the office space. This has a standard conference room, cubicles, desks. This is for the low-intensity activity, the shallow work related to your project. Maybe an administrator helps users optimize their workflow here.
So you don't jump straight into deep work from zero. You gradually shed the distractions and get into the zone. But where's the actual deep part?
That's the final room, the deep work chambers. These are individual 6 by 10 foot rooms protected by 18 inches of soundproof insulation. The purpose, Duane says, is total focus and uninterrupted workflow. He envisions 90-minute deep work sessions followed by 90-minute breaks, repeating 2 or 3 times.
18 inches of soundproofing? That's serious. Imagine having that level of dedicated, undisturbed time. Our current reality, with open-plan offices and constant pings, feels like the exact opposite of this eudaimonia machine.
And that's Cal's whole point. The eudaimonia machine is an ideal, a vision of what's possible in a world that truly values deep work. But we're in a shallow world where quick email responses are often prized over producing truly impactful, focused work. This first rule, work deeply, is about how we, as disciples of depth in a shallow world, can simulate those effects.
But why do we even need all these complex strategies? If deep work is so valuable, why can't we just decide to do more of it? Like, okay, new plan, I'm going to concentrate more today. I feel like I tell myself that all the time.
That's the core question Cal tackles next, and it comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of how our brains work, specifically around willpower. He talks about a 2012 study by psychologists Wilhelm Hoffman and Roy Baumeister. They gave 205 adults beepers that went off randomly throughout the day, asking them to record any desires they'd felt in the last half hour.
And what did they find, besides everyone wanting a snack?
Exactly that and more. They found people are fighting desires all day long. The top desires included things like eating, sleeping, and sex, but also taking a break from hard work, checking email, social media, surfing the web, watching TV. The lure of the internet and TV was so strong that subjects only resisted it about half the time.
Half the time? That's depressing. It means I'm not just weak-willed, it's practically universal. It feels like every time I try to focus, my brain just starts screaming for something shiny.
And that's the critical insight. Baumeister's research and a huge body of work before it established a truth that was unexpected at the time. Willpower is a finite resource. It's not this limitless well of determination.
Like a muscle, you use it and it gets tired.
Precisely, if you're constantly trying to resist the urge to check your phone or reply to an email or switch tabs, you're depleting that willpower. Eventually, like a tired muscle, it gives out. This is why just deciding to concentrate more often fails. You're constantly fighting against that depletion.
So, all those times I've tried to just power through distractions and ended up mindlessly scrolling Twitter instead, it wasn't a moral failing, it was a biological reality. That actually makes me feel a little better, and also a little more helpless.
Not helpless, Maya, informed. The key isn't to rely on heroic acts of willpower. It's to build routines and rituals that minimize the amount of willpower you need to transition into and maintain deep work. If you have a set time, a specific location, a clear routine, you're not constantly battling the online shininess with a dwindling supply of mental energy. You're leveraging habit and environment instead.
So, instead of trying to push through the resistance every single time, we're building a path of least resistance into deep work. It's like setting up the eudaimonia machine for yourself, even if it's just in a corner of your living room.
That's the essence of this chapter's rule. You're transforming deep work from a sporadic aspiration into a regular, structured part of your day by understanding and working with your brain's limitations, not against them. It's about being smart with your habits to consistently achieve more deep work.
Got it. It's not about wishing for focus, it's about architecting it. So, that's the theory behind why we need these strategies. But actually putting those routines and rituals into practice, that's where the rubber meets the road. What does that actually look like?
Okay, moving into Chapter 5, titled Embrace Boredom. This is where Cal Newport really shifts our understanding of focus. Up until now, we've talked about scheduling deep work, setting up routines. But here, he says the ability to concentrate isn't just about putting time on your calendar. It's a skill like lifting weights that needs to be trained.
A skill? See, I always thought it was more about willpower. Like, if I really need to focus, I can. I just sometimes don't feel like it, or there are too many distractions. Are you telling me I'm actually bad at focusing, not just unmotivated? That feels a little harsh, Jack.
It's not harsh, it's scientific. He introduces this incredible example of Adam Marlin, an Orthodox Jew in New York. Every weekday morning at 6 a.m., Marlin is at the synagogue studying the Talmud. This isn't just casual reading, it's mentally grueling. He works with a study partner, a chevruta, to push his understanding to his absolute cognitive limit, often struggling with complex ancient texts for hours.
6 a.m.? Wow. So, he's basically doing hardcore brain training before the sun is even fully up. What does that have to do with us average folks trying to get through an email inbox?
Well, Marlin started this rigorous practice later in life, in his 20s, even with multiple Ivy League degrees under his belt. He noticed something profound. People who had only ever attended small religious schools but had been doing this daily mental calisthenics since 5th grade could dance intellectual circles around him. and over time, he himself started making more creative insights in his business life. Directly attributing it to this consistent mental strain, it built his mental muscle over years.
So it's not about being naturally smart or even having a fancy education. It's about consistently flexing that focus muscle. That makes sense in a way. Like a runner isn't just born fast, they train for it. But how do you train focus when our entire modern world is designed to pull you in a million directions? Every buzz, every notification, it feels like an uphill battle.
Exactly, that's the corollary he brings up. Efforts to deepen your focus will struggle if you don't simultaneously wean your mind from its dependence on distraction. He talks about late Stanford professor Clifford Nass, who studied behavior in the digital age. Nass found that constant attention switching online has a lasting negative effect on your brain.
Lasting negative effect sounds ominous. What does that mean for someone like me, who feels like my phone is practically surgically attached to my hand sometimes?
Nass described these constant multitaskers as pretty much mental wrecks. They can't filter out irrelevancy, they can't manage working memory, they're chronically distracted. What's even scarier is that these people think they can snap into laser focus when needed. But NASA's research showed they developed habits of mind that made it impossible. Their brains were rewired, they were suckers for irrelevancy.
Oh my gosh, that's horrifying. So, if I spend every moment waiting in line or sitting alone at a restaurant, immediately pulling out my phone to scroll, I'm actually training my brain not to focus. I'm actively making myself a mental wreck. That thought really hits home. I do that without even thinking about it.
Precisely, your brain gets accustomed to on-demand distraction. So the moment any hint of boredom or unstructured thought appears, it immediately craves that quick hit of information, that scroll. And this isn't something an internet Sabbath or a digital detox once a week can solve.
Yeah, I've tried those. They feel good for a day, but then Monday morning hits and I'm right back to frantically checking emails and notifications. It feels like a temporary band-aid, not a real solution.
Cal Newport agrees. He says that if you spend most of your time gorging on distraction, one day of detox is like trying to lose weight by eating healthy just one day a week. It simply won't rewire your brain. Instead, his radical proposal is, don't take breaks from distraction. Instead, take breaks from focus.
Whoa, say that again. So, you're not supposed to schedule time away from distractions, but schedule time for distractions? That feels backwards.
It's a reframe. The idea is to make deep work your default state. You schedule your focus periods, and then you also schedule specific limited breaks where you allow yourself to engage with distracting stimuli, check social media, browse the web, whatever. Outside of those scheduled distraction breaks, your mind is in a state of continuous focus, ready to tackle any task without interruption. The goal is to starve your brain of the constant drip of novelty and retrain it to tolerate and even enjoy periods of uninterrupted thought. It's about making focus the rule and distraction the exception rather than the other way around.
So instead of thinking, I need to avoid my phone today, it's more like, I'm working on this until 11 a.m. and then from 11 to 11:15, I get to check my feed. And outside that 15 minutes, the phone might as well be on another planet. That sounds incredibly disciplined. It means being constantly vigilant about what you let into your mind.
It absolutely does. This chapter hammers home that deep work isn't just a behavior. It's a neurological state you cultivate. You're essentially telling your brain, no, we don't jump to the easiest stimulation. We sit with this discomfort, this lack of instant gratification, and we strengthen our ability to concentrate. It's about being intentional with every idle moment, because those moments are when you either reinforce distraction or build your focus muscle.
That makes so much more sense than just willpower. It's like your brain is a garden, and if you keep planting weeds, you can't expect beautiful flowers to grow without consistent effort. And those weeds are everywhere.
Exactly, this shift in mindset from thinking of focus as a flip switch to a muscle you need to rigorously train and protect from constant distraction is fundamental to truly mastering deep work. It means a complete overhaul of how we approach our digital lives, especially the platforms designed to be inherently distracting.
So we have to start seeing every little break, every idle second, as a chance to either strengthen or weaken our focus, instead of just a mindless escape. That's a powerful and, frankly, a little daunting way to look at it. It certainly makes you think about how we engage with some of the most pervasive sources of distraction out there.
It really does, because if we're serious about rebuilding our mental muscle and embracing boredom, then we have to confront the biggest culprits that keep our brains craving that instant hit. Okay, so after all that discussion about how to structure your deep work sessions, we get to chapter 6, and Cal Newport throws a bit of a curveball. The title, Quit Social Media, and I can practically hear the collective gasp from listeners right now.
Right? Because honestly, my first thought is, Cal, bless your heart, but who are you talking to? A hermit living off-grid. It feels so unrealistic. Like my entire professional network is on LinkedIn, my family's group chats are on WhatsApp, and half my entertainment is curated by algorithms. How do you just quit that?
That's exactly the tension he's addressing. He starts the chapter with this really interesting story about baritone Thurston, who, back in 2013, was dubbed the most connected man in the world. Thurston decided to take a 25-day break from everything online. No Facebook, no Twitter, no Foursquare, not even email. He was completely burnt out.
And what happened? Did he just vanish?
No, surprisingly. He wrote about it for Fast Company magazine called #Unplug, and what he found was that after an initial adjustment period, he started to genuinely enjoy life without the constant ping. He was talking to strangers, enjoying meals without Instagramming them. He even bought a bike and found it easier to ride when he wasn't trying to check his Twitter simultaneously. He felt less stressed, less worried about missing things. He literally lamented when the 25 days were over.
That sounds like a dream, honestly. A digital detox sounds amazing for a vacation, a temporary reset. But then, real life hits, right? He had businesses to run, books to market. He had to go back.
Exactly, and that's Cal's core point. Thurston did go back, and within months, he was tweeting dozens of times a day again. Cal uses this to highlight what he calls the binary response problem. People think their only options are to either completely quit the internet like Thurston temporarily did, or to just accept this hyper-distracted state as inevitable. And Cal argues both are too crude to be useful. Quitting altogether isn't sustainable for most. And accepting the status quo cripples your deep work ability.
That makes so much sense. I feel like I'm constantly in that loop. I'll delete an app for a week, feel great, then something pops up, a friend's birthday, a work announcement, and suddenly I'm reinstalling it, and within a day, I'm back to scrolling mindlessly.
So Cal offers a third option. He says these tools aren't inherently evil and some are vital, but the threshold for allowing them regular access to your time and attention needs to be much, much higher. Most people, he argues, should be using many fewer of these network tools, as he calls them. It's about finding a middle ground, not quitting, but rejecting the default state of hyperconnectedness.
Okay, that's a more palatable idea. But how do you actually decide which ones to keep and which to cut? Because it feels like everything offers some kind of benefit.
And there, Maya, you've hit on his next big concept, the any benefit mindset. This is where most people go wrong. When asked why they use a specific social media platform, they'll say things like, it's entertaining, or I reconnected with old high school friends, or I found a writing forum and made some connections.
And those are benefits. What's wrong with that? If you get a little entertainment, or a few laughs, or reconnect with someone, isn't that good?
Cal's argument is that while those benefits aren't illusory, they are often surprisingly minor and somewhat random. He pushes back. Were you truly suffering from a severe deficit of entertainment before Facebook? Would you be incapable of staving off boredom if it vanished tomorrow? Are those lightweight friendships you made on a forum truly central to your social life?
Ouch, that's a good question. It really makes you think about how necessary something actually is versus just being an easy option. It's like, I don't need TikTok to be entertained, but it's just so easy to open.
Exactly, the any benefit mindset says, if I can identify any possible benefit or anything I might miss out on, then I'm justified in using it. The problem, of course, is that this completely ignores all the negatives. These services are engineered to be addictive, to fragment your attention, and to rob time from activities that are far more impactful, like deep work. If you don't weigh the pros against the significant cons, you're unwittingly crippling your ability to focus and achieve.
So it's not just about the 5 minutes you spend scrolling, it's about the cost to your overall capacity for focus and the mental bandwidth it eats up even when you're not using it. It's like a hidden tax on your attention.
Think of it like this. A skilled craftsperson, a blacksmith for example, doesn't just pick up any hammer because it can hit things. They choose the right hammer for the specific job, considering its weight, its head, its handle. They apply sophistication and skepticism to their tools. We should approach our digital tools with the same rigor. Are these tools truly the best and most efficient way to achieve my most important professional and personal goals? Or am I just using them because they offer any minor benefit?
That analogy makes it incredibly clear. We've just been so passive about adopting these things, almost like they were an inevitable part of living in the 21st century. But Cal is saying we need to be masters of our tools, not slaves to them. It's about being deliberate.
Precisely, the core lesson here is to escape that binary trap. Don't quit the internet entirely, but stop blindly accepting every network tool into your life. Be ruthless in your selection, demanding a very high bar for what earns your precious time and attention. If it doesn't clearly and substantially support your deep work or highly valued personal goals, then it's likely costing you more than it gives. It's a call to take back control of your digital life.
So, it's not just about what you don't do, but what you do with that reclaimed time and focus. It implies a different kind of structure for your day.
Right? Once you've become incredibly selective about the tools you allow into your attention economy, the natural next step is to get equally intentional about how you structure your time itself. Because just removing distractions isn't enough. You need a system to ensure that the time freed up is actively channeled into deep, meaningful work, rather than just drifting into other forms of shallow engagement. Okay, so we're moving into Chapter 7, which Cal Newport titles Drain the Shallows. And this is where he really starts pushing us to confront how much time we waste on what he calls shallow work.
Drain the shallows sounds aggressive. Like, rip it all out. My immediate thought is, easier said than done. What even is shallow work again, as a quick refresher? Because for most of us it just feels like work.
That's a great question to start with. Cal defines shallow work as non-cognitively demanding tasks, often performed while distracted, that don't create much new value in the world and are easy to replicate. Think emails, scheduling meetings, administrative tasks, social media glances, the kind of stuff you can often do on autopilot. And this chapter opens with a fantastic real-world example from a company called 37 Signals, now known as Basecamp.
Oh, I've heard of them. They're known for their unique work culture.
Exactly. Back in 2007, they experimented with shortening their work week from 5 days to 4. Their employees worked Monday through Thursday, with Fridays off during the summer. And what happened? Their productivity stayed roughly the same, so they made it a permanent thing for half the year.
Wait, hold on. The same amount of work in less time? My brain immediately goes to, okay, so they just crammed 40 hours into 4 10-hour days. Because that's how it would go in most places I've ever worked. You just end up burning out faster.
That's the common misconception, and a journalist for Forbes actually made that exact criticism. But Jason Fried, the co-founder of 37 Signals, pushed back hard. He said, no, that's not the point at all. The point of the 4-day work week was about doing less work, not 4 10-hour days, but 4 normal 8-hour days.
Okay, now I'm even more confused. How can you get the same amount done by working fewer hours? That sounds like magical thinking.
Not magic, just a ruthless focus on what actually matters. Fried explained that most people aren't working 8 solid hours anyway. There's so much fat in the typical workday, constant meetings, endless interruptions, checking social media, personal errands mixed in. When you cut down the official working hours, people become incredibly stingy with their time. They respect it more. They stop wasting it on things that don't truly contribute. It forced them to disproportionately eliminate shallow work, while the deep, valuable stuff largely remained untouched.
So it's like when you have a smaller suitcase for a trip, you suddenly realize you don't actually need half the stuff you usually pack. It forces a brutal prioritization. I can see that. I definitely have fat in my week. So many times I'm just filling space, responding to things that probably didn't need an immediate response.
Precisely, and 37 Signals then took it a step further. They wondered, what if we not only eliminated shallow work, but actually replaced that recovered time with more deep work? So they implemented something pretty radical. They gave their employees the entire month of June off to work deeply on self-directed projects. No meetings, no memos, no PowerPoint. Just pure, uninterrupted focus on their own ideas.
An entire month? That sounds like a fantasy. Most companies would say they can't afford to put their business on hold for that long. How did they justify that?
Fried's rhetorical question was, how can we afford not to? At the end of that month, they held a pitch day where employees presented their projects. It led to 2 major breakthroughs that went into production: a better customer support tool and a data visualization system to understand how customers use their products. These were projects that would bring substantial value, but they needed dozens of hours of unimpeded, deep effort to come to fruition. They wouldn't have happened with the usual fragmented workday.
That makes sense. It's like trying to build a complex structure when you only have 10 minutes a day to work on it, versus having a solid week. The difference in progress would be astronomical. It really highlights how much we underestimate the damage of constant interruptions and overestimating how important the urgent, shallow stuff really is.
Exactly. The core lesson here is that the shallow work dominating our schedules is far less vital than it feels in the moment. If you cut significant amounts of it, your bottom line often remains unaffected. And if you replace that time with deep work, your impact can actually grow.
But it can't be all deep work, right? Like, I still have to answer emails, or my job would be gone.
Absolutely, Cal is clear that we're not aiming for a quixotic schedule where all your time is deep work. Some shallow work is necessary to maintain most knowledge work jobs. You can't just vanish and ignore all communication. The goal is to tame its footprint, not eliminate it entirely. It's about being suspicious of it and confining it.
That's a relief. Because sometimes this idea of deep work only can feel overwhelming, like another impossible standard to live up to. So, if I'm trying to tame it, how much deep work can I realistically aim for in a day?
That's a crucial point. Deep work is exhausting. It pushes you to your cognitive limits. Performance psychologists like Anders Ericsson, who Cal references, have studied this. For most people familiar with the rigors of deep work, the limit is around 4 hours a day, rarely more. For someone new to it, it might be an hour.
Only 4 hours out of an 8-hour day? That feels low. Doesn't that mean I have half my day to wallow in shallow work without it being a problem?
It seems optimistic at first glance, but that's the danger. Cal uses his own example as a professor. Even in a job traditionally less plagued by meetings, he still finds his 8-hour workday can easily be reduced by 4 hours of scheduled meetings and classes. Then even if he squeezed all remaining shallow tasks like email in a half an hour, he'd still fall short of hitting that 4-hour deep work goal. The typical knowledge workday is far more fragmented than most people realize.
So the problem isn't that we can only do 4 hours of deep work. It's that those 4 hours are so easily eaten away by everything else, leaving us with 0 hours of deep work, even though we think we're busy all day. It really puts into perspective how little truly impactful work we might be doing, despite feeling swamped.
Exactly, the damage of shallow work is often vastly underestimated, and its importance vastly overestimated. You have to keep it confined so it doesn't impede those precious few hours where you can truly leverage deep efforts to make an impact. Now, understanding this is one thing, but actually putting it into practice, that requires some very specific strategies. The first one Cal dives into is about how to literally schedule every minute of your day. So that brings us to the end of deep work. When you step back and look at the whole picture, Cal Newport isn't just giving us productivity hacks. He's laying out a complete system, a pragmatic philosophy for structuring your entire professional life around the principle that intense, undistracted concentration is the most valuable currency in our modern world. It's about building a fortress for your focus.
And it's truly transformative. It's not just about doing more, but about doing what truly matters, deeply and meaningfully. It strips away the artificial busyness and demands you confront what you're truly capable of. That can feel uncomfortable at first, but the reward is a life rich with purpose and an authentic sense of accomplishment that those distracted masses simply won't ever experience.
If you want to keep exploring these deep ideas with us day after day, make sure you're subscribed to our channel Book Talk Podcast. We are building a library of wisdom here.
Deep work pushes us to create incredible value in the time we commit. It shows us how potent our focused effort can be.
Exactly, it's about making your work so impactful that you can achieve astonishing results.
And if you're like me, once you realize how much more you can get done effectively, you start thinking, what else is possible with this efficiency? How can I leverage this to truly design my life?
That's where our next deep dive comes in. If deep work is about maximizing the value of your hours, then the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss is about maximizing the value of your life outside of those hours. It shows you how to take the efficiency and impact you gain from deep work and use it to reclaim your time, automate the mundane, and truly live more.
It's the perfect companion to truly master your time and your freedom. You can click on our breakdown of the 4-Hour Workweek right on your screen now to continue this journey with us.